We want to thank you and welcome you to the monthly one-on-one with the Minister of Economy and Labor, the Honorable Jason Hayward. Minister, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, T. Lindsay.
You've been very busy with the start of the tourism season. We have a lot of young people coming back home from college, university, and I see you got a minimum wage increase, or I don't even know if this is the first one for our summer students. Bring us up to date.
So I just want to inform employers that there is a minimum wage for summer students. And so the minimum wage for summer students is set at 70% of the national minimum wage. And as a result of that, the minimum wage for summer students is $11.99. Many summer students do make above that particular wage level. However, I do want to remind employers that when you engage a summer student, you just can't pay them anything.
Do you think if someone making more, will employers decrease that and come to this level here?
No, we haven't seen that to be a trend. And also because of the choice of jobs that some students have, normally that is pre-negotiated through a contract. But what we would say is that we don't want persons engaging some students and feeling as though they can pay them anything and taking advantage of them just because they're youth.
Has there been, what's the numbers for young people entering to the workforce this summer?
I don't have the total number of jobs available to summer students, but I do know that from a workforce development standpoint, we will be running our two programs, which is the summer internship program and the summer employment program. That's for college students and high school students. The international business sector will continue with its programs as well as many other programs across the country. And so we do have ample summer jobs for our young people that do apply for this particular jobs. We try to fill the gap as much as we possibly can. But I am encouraged by the increased level of internships. I am encouraged by the increased level of scholarships. One area that we'll be focused on from a workforce development standpoint is expanding apprenticeship programs. Mm-hmm. We also run a unique program, which is after summer, which is a graduate apprenticeship program for those persons who have graduated from school, may have done some employment, but still can't find employment after summer. Mm-hmm. We also run a graduate apprenticeship program that we ask people to apply to. And so we're doing a number of things to support our youth in employment.
How long that new initiative has been going on?
We've been running that for a couple years now, and so I believe we're on our fifth or sixth cohort of the graduate apprenticeship program.
What do the numbers look like?
Normally the cohort sizes are small, roughly around 14 individuals, but it is very concentrated because we do pay for those persons to take on those internship roles in companies.
And how long does a recipient last in this position?
Typically what we do is run it for a 14-week period, and then after that the employer has the option whether or not they want to retain the individual. Even if the individual is not retained, that person still has a valuable knowledge learned and built their capacity in an occupational category that they wouldn't have had an opportunity to otherwise.
Christoph, let's talk about the pay transparency policy out of consultantship. What is that?
And so what we've recently done is put out a policy based off of the government's intention to ensure that we have a more equitable workplace. Right now, we have disparities in play between males and females, blacks and whites, Bermudians and non-Bermudians. And so what we want to do is close some of those disparity gaps that exist within the world of work. Mm-hmm. And so the government wants to do a concerted effort to ensure that every company has a pay transparency policy in place, that a company is reporting on the salaries that it's providing its employees within wage bands. But then if you're an employee, you get to ask what the co-workers, which are in similar positions, are actually making within your establishment. It also prohibits an employer from asking you what you were making at your last job. I don't see the connection of the work that you were doing in your last job and that being directly tied to the value you can provide to the organization in your new job. The pay transparency policy seeks to ensure that there are greater levels of fairness within the workplace. Right now, we know there are challenges, and there are challenges because there is no mandatory reporting, there is no disclosure, and so the whole reason why we're utilizing the word transparency is because we want to move to a place where there is equal pay for equal work of equal value.
I'm just going to ask, how does your ministry police this initiative?
And so what we intend to do is built into the legislation is ensure that we have labor inspectors that can actually go in the workplace and investigate. And also the labor department will be the office in which employees can complain to if their employer does not have a pay transparency policy in place, or whether or not they have uncovered that there are disparities that cannot be justified through reason.
Good stuff. The labor force survey numbers released by your ministry. You want to talk about that?
And so we recently released the labor force survey numbers from May of 2025. Those numbers indicated that Bermuda's unemployment rate overall remains under 2% at 1.7%. It means statistically we have full employment in Bermuda. When we look at the Bermudian unemployment rate, it's just a little bit above 2% and at 2.1%. And then where our data will be more alarming to the public is that our youth unemployment rate is now at 9.3%.
Is that high?
It is high in relative to all other demographic groups. It is normal as it pertains to youth unemployment rates worldwide. And so the average global youth unemployment rate is roughly around 12.5%. We are still underneath the global average, but we have work to do in terms of ensuring that our young people are prepared to take advantage of jobs that exist within our economy.
What has caused this trend to be exacerbated? Because years ago, it was easy to find a job. Is it because of everything has to have a quote unquote, what's the word, certificate for?
There are a number of factors. And so where we have better pipelines from our school system into employment, you will find a seamless journey for young persons into employment. But then as we shifted and moved away from a high demand in administrative and service level jobs, which would have been in our banks and within our hospitality sector, and moving to IB, the entry level requirements are actually greater. And so that's where you may see some of the challenges. But it's our responsibility to ensure that we prepare our young people to take advantage of opportunities that exist. And that is why we focus on executing the youth employment strategy. I report on a quarterly basis the work that we're doing in alignment with that strategy, because we want to ensure that we have a layers of focus on connecting our young people with jobs.
What does the numbers look like for male, female, black, white? Do you have a breakdown in that?
As it pertains to unemployment?
Yeah, for the youth.
We'll have to dig down and get those numbers, but I think it is something that we have to consider the demographic makeup of our youth unemployment rates. We're going to embark on a census, and the census will give us all the demographic data we need and all the additional data we need about our labor market. And so we'll be able to do better analysis after that census, because you know that the labor force survey is just a sample of the entire population, while the census is a complete audit of our entire population. As a result of that, it will put us in a better place when we put out data, and when you asking questions regarding demographics, employment, housing, immigration, we would have all that data available to provide sound information to you.
I'm sure you'll agree. I'll venture to say that the black young man, this numbers are probably somewhere around 4%, due to the challenges they have. Bermuda has been now changed and a lot of negative activity. So how do we fix that, Minister?
We do have greater challenges with our young black men than our young women, but we do have challenges with our men and women as pertains to social challenges. How do we fix it is ensuring that we provide proper social interventions when required. You can't fix a problem after somebody leaves the school system and then say that person was a problem for their entire school career. You need to ensure that you provide the proper social interventions at the proper time and when the kids actually need it. And so it's for us to properly identify when our young people are experiencing challenges and ensure that we provide those critical interventions at that period of time, whether it be when they're in preschool, whether it be when they're in primary school or high school. We need to ensure that we also have the resources able to assist those individuals and get them the help that they need earlier. And that would help them to get on what I could say a corrective track before it spirals too far out of control.
I'm sure, Minister, you come from the area in which we both come from. I'll put it that way. And I'm sure you see some of these individuals. How does that emotionally trouble you when you see and you know, you can just reach out and touch? How does it personally feel when you see some of our individuals being challenged?
First and foremost, I understand it. And then I understand that it's not always the individual's fault. Oftentimes we're pointing fingers at an individual, but you have to understand people's environment. And some people don't come from environments that are conducive to their development. And as a result of that, that's why I'm saying that there needs to be social interventions. If a school system is this person's only avenue to structure in their life, and then they get booted out of the school system, then you're putting them back in an environment with a lack of structure. Persons don't understand the economic and social pressures put on some of our young people based off of the geographical area that they actually live in. Some of these social challenges are extreme, I would say. And notwithstanding that, a lot of our young people are actually resilient because a lot of them progress through very negative environments and they come out as stronger human beings at the end, but some people don't make it. And so that's when I say the proper social interventions. When it is identified that this person doesn't have clean school clothes, doesn't have lunch, it's multiple signs that should trigger how do we best assess first and then help that individual who may be in need.
I'm glad you said that, but how do we get buy-in from the whole island to help and invest in some of the challenges that our young people are going through?
Part of what I would like to see is more of a holistic approach. We're not there yet, but we need to collectively work together to ensure that we are providing the best village for our kids. And so they say a village raises a child. That is actually true. So a lot of guys take refuge in the football club, and the guidance that they get is from their coaches and other persons where there's the absence of a father in their life. And the coach at that point in time may think he's just showing up to coach football, but not understanding he's playing a greater role in that young person's life. It's the same thing like that school teacher or that mentor or that fan that comes to the club and always teaching the kids to do the right thing. When you grow up, you always appreciate that other person who was always trying to steer you in the right direction, notwithstanding you were trying to be rebellious. And so it's understanding that all of us have a role to play. And if we all play our part, we develop a better village for our kids to be raised in.
Thank you, Minister. For those just joining us, we are in our monthly one-on-one with the Minister of Economy and Labor, the Honorable Jason Hayward. I'm Trevor Lindsay, the State of Affairs. We're on the road. Minister, let's go into the English language proficiency test, something like that.
Yes. And so what you would have seen...
You done a survey. Let's talk about the results.
No, well, what we done is we would have looked to determine what are the acceptable tests that the Department of Immigration is going to actually accept, and then what are the rates. What we actually established is that the original test scores that we had set were not completely in alignment with each other. And so what we determined is that, or what we found is that there are international equivalence tables that will put all the testing results in the same area. And so what we said is we didn't need people to speak advanced English, but we will accept intermediate English. So the testing results that we published are in alignment with persons speaking intermediate English.
What would you consider intermediate English?
A strong ability to speak English. There are other areas of a test which have writing and actually vocabulary and things of that nature. Some of the grammar portions, even us, we won't be able to pass, and so we didn't want to set it high at a university level. There are different test scores required for different entry-level requirements. For example, those persons who are seeking to go into a university, they would have to write essays and things of that nature, and as a result, the requirement will be higher. We just need people to understand and speak English. And so that's why we chose the intermediate level.
And this English language test is pertaining to our guest workers.
Correct. So every new work permit, if a person emanates from a non-English speaking country, they would have to ensure that they meet the testing requirements.
Now, I took some slack the last time when they asked these questions from certain personal individuals that I do know. And I just want to let you know that this is part of the immigration policy. It was nothing personal. I'm just a reporter trying to get the information across. Minister, I see the results right here. You got International English Language Testing System. Total maximum test score was 4. Why such a low number?
And so there are different grading systems. And like I said, we matched every system with what we consider to be a B2 level, which would be an intermediate level, and they would have an equivalence table. And so when you look at the different tests are graded. So it's not like it's graded out of 100. Some tests are not graded out of 10. There is no fixed, scores. And so every test has a different score. The international agencies have done their work to equivalize the scores. And so those are the scores that meet the intermediate requirements.
Test of English as a foreign language, total minimum test score 42. Duolingo English test, total minimum test score 75. And the test of English for international communication, total score 550. Sounds like it's getting pretty good.
Yeah, so what we want to do is we don't want to accept any test. People are going online, just doing the English language test and submitting it. We want to ensure that the test that is submitted is in line with the guidelines that we set, number one. And number two, it's important that you take one of those tests because we know that tests have been graded equivalent to what we consider to be the standard in Bermuda. There has been a lot of calls for us to remove the test altogether. Because there are a number of foreign workers that have an inability to pass the test. And as a result of that, there has been calls for us to remove the test. We are not in a position or prepared to remove the test. It is my desire to ensure that English language is spoken in Bermuda when persons are actually working in Bermuda. But it's done not just from a desire standpoint, from a health and safety standpoint. It is also to ensure that we have inclusive workplaces as well, where if a Bermudian is working in that workplace with non-Bermudians, that person can communicate with their colleagues. That is also fundamentally important. And so we will have a standard in Bermuda. We did say from the get-go that every non-Bermudian worker in Bermuda must have English proficiency. We left it up to the employers to ensure that that was the case. There was abuse, and as a result, now we're putting the test in place.
They used the word abuse. I would say loophole. It was a loophole that you're closing.
Most definitely, it was a loophole, but flagrant abuse. Oh. Because, and I will use the word flagrant because some individuals we find cannot communicate in basic English.
No English?
None, not even. And so if we even talk about intermediate, that's one thing, but we're talking about basic English.
I've seen it myself in court where an interpreter had to be brought in for a guest worker. So I guess that's a challenge that you're getting a grip on.
I think once persons start to adhere to the standard, we'll see a shift in that the behavior of individuals not speaking English in Bermuda.
And that should be in the, what you call it, downstairs in applying for a work permit.
Yeah.
That this is all a part of the new work permit system?
Correct. It's part of the new work permit policy, and it means that every new work permit holder will have to take the test if they emanate from a non-English speaking country.
Lastly, Minister, Bermuda Jobs Connects now live, connecting job seekers and employers. Something that is in place at Workforce Development, and also Workforce Development is now moved to Bermuda College.
Yes. And so I'm excited about the move of Workforce Development to Bermuda College. Strategically, it makes sense. It means that the two organizations who are responsible for workforce development and preparing people for job opportunities can actually work together and synergize instead of working in silos. If you looked at the workforce development strategy, the community colleges in a country always played a fundamental role in ensuring that it closes the gap between what is in demand from the workplace and the supply of labor through running programs. Now they can work more strategic with the Department of Workforce Development to close those gaps. And I think it works for the betterment of job seekers and the betterment of employers who are actually seeking to ensure that they have a pipeline of talent. And so if the two organizations work together, it strengthens our workforce development system and ultimately helps to connect more people with jobs.
The online Job Connect, is it easy, user-friendly for individuals to go through and look for, especially our young people, look for employment?
Yes, so it is user-friendly. It has a number of additional features. It has a lot more information than the previous job board actually has. It has micro-credentials that people can take up, and even when they are successful in obtaining those micro-credentials, it adds directly to their profile, so an employer can see that people are upskilling the skill sets and things of that nature. And so it is a very positive step. You have videos and testimonials of individuals who work in certain occupational categories, explaining the education requirement, explaining the experience required, explaining the practical steps that they took to get on that particular job ladder. So I'm encouraged by it. I think that it will add value to our workforce development system and help connect employers with employees and job seekers with jobs.
Minister, what's the word, lastly? I said that last time. I said it in the last question, and this is my supplementary, a different point. What is your greatest challenge you're facing for this up and coming, summer?
But we are having Fairmont Southampton open up, and so we are going to have some level of labor disruption with that establishment drawing employees from other areas within the economy. We are going to have a bit of a challenge as it pertains to continually ensuring that we connect our young people with opportunities. I can't run from the numbers which says that the trend as it pertains to youth unemployment is going up. And so that is a glaring challenge and something that we're committed to working on. From an economy and labor standpoint, we will be rolling out a national entrepreneurship strategy soon. And that's something I'm pleased about because we need to support small and medium-sized enterprises in Bermuda in an earnest manner, and that report helps us to progress that. We have rolled out a fintech strategy, and we'll be working through that. We are also working on a digital economy strategy so that we can see a greater level of integration of technology within our private sector, within our government, so we can improve government services, ensuring that we have the proper infrastructure in place. And so those are the things that we're working on. We're also working to expand some of the labor protections, such as ensuring that the Employment and Labor Tribunal have more teeth and they can give civil penalties out for employers who have been going through a labor relations matter. The matter has been adjudicated. The employee has received an award, but the employer just doesn't pay that award. And so it's going to give the Employment and Labor Tribunal more teeth to actually fine those individuals. Some things down the pipeline we will be looking at some point in time, sham marriages. We will be looking at intellectual property legislation. So the Ministry of Economy and Labor will be busy for the remainder of the year.
And the next one we'll talk about this. You said sham marriages?
Yes, sham marriages.
That's for the next one. I don't want to get, to be continued. But Minister, you touched on Southampton Princess. Mm-hmm. Are they on time? Because from my investigation, they're way behind, especially at the main side of the hotel. Down below, it looks like they're moving fast on the beachfront.
I think that's a question for the developers. I didn't have a time frame that was actually set
They said 2026.
with the government. It's my understanding.
July 2026.
It's my understanding that 2026 is still this year is still they were still opening up this year. And so I actually see clarity from, the developers. I know on our end, what we have been discussing thus far with the establishment is the labor needs. And you would know that I mandated that the hotel actually have 50%, open up with 50% Bermudian labor. The hotel has committed to that, which is extremely positive. And so we should see increase of job opportunities for Bermudians who are seeking employment in hospitality.
We want to thank you for joining us. On our next program, we will be talking about the sham marriages and updates on Southampton Princess. Minister, I want to thank you for yet again taking time out of your busy schedule for our monthly one-on-one State of Affairs on the road with the Minister Jason Hayward. I'm not going to go through his portfolio. It's a tongue twister for me, but I'm Trevor Lindsay, and I want to thank you for joining us. I say it all the time: don't drink and drive. The life you save, it could be earned. Thank you.